Okay. We actually might have live stream again. Let's see here. Alrighty. I've told it to start streaming. I got the audio turned on. Right. Let's do a check here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay, looks like a 13, 14-second delay. Yeah, bail's just what I made. So, well, wow. Okay, that's great. It looks like it was a 24-hour penalty box. So, okay, we'll. Okay, what happened last time? Last time, apparently, when I held up Ian's boomstick, the algorithm snagged it, and it was an automatic. Apparently, last June. I'll turn this down. Apparently, last June, Ken did some research. Last June, the tube passed a new policy that you cannot assemble, disassemble, or fondle any boomstick on maybe on YouTube at all, or maybe just a live stream. I'm not really sure. But so when Ian had showed me his A-Team replica Mini 14, that was I think the algorithm saw it because it's stuff AI's gotten pretty intelligent, and it just flagged it automatically, and it just hit a 24-hour clock. I did not get a strike. They told me, well, we've changed policies. We know you might, but so anyway, we all know the score. So boomstick. I'm trying not to say anything that'll get me in trouble. A rifle, a firearm. So that is what happened, and don't think I'm on probation. They didn't give me a strike. That's a good thing. The whole time I've been on YouTube, I've only gotten one strike, and that was copyright using some music or something. But anyway, I wasn't planning on doing a live stream tonight, so I just thought I would put out this public service message. So there will be no more boomsticks on this. And for those who don't get the reference, it's from the movie Army of Darkness. Bruce Campbell's character goes back in time with a double-barrel scattergun, and when the local peasants of the medieval era see it, of course, they're horrified, and he knows they don't know what a rifle or a shotgun is, so he calls it, yes, that's right, I have my mighty boomstick, and which I think just, you can get t-shirts, with him and everything, which is, anyway. So this whole thing was completely unexpected. But on the upside, it got me out of the computer room and into the working room, so I got a lot of work done on the F4. And I also just found a video, some footage from the mid-'70s of the MFA 333 doing operations in the Med off the Nimitz. So a lot of that footage I might be able to use when I put the documentary together for the Colonel. The airplanes have the Vietnam Air paint scheme, although they have that intake-mounted radar jammer that they didn't have in Vietnam. So other than that, everything's pretty authentic since it was taken just a few years out. In fact, I think the Colonel's plane was 5526, and they actually have some footage of 5525 that sister ship taken off. Pew pew. Shop at S-Mart. There you go. So Nice thing about this channel is you usually don't have to. Everybody usually gets the references, which is, of course, a sign of aging. That hold on, I gotta just a sec. On air. Yeah, we have a hard and fast rule here at the on-air sign, and the door gets shut, and the on-air sign's on when I'm on here, so nobody walks in their underwear or something. Which, trust me, you don't want to see that. Anyway, so I am at least on YouTube probation, I guess. I don't know, but we'll just be careful. Somebody had actually emailed me earlier today, one of the Glue Troopers, that they had it was a military modeling channel, and they had their whole channel taken down, and he has no idea why. He didn't get any warning or anything. It's just one day it wasn't there. All the chats were gone, everything, and he didn't do anything like I did. He said the only thing he can think of was it was just miniatures, it was little infantry soldiers and armored vehicles, and apparently somebody just. I've had a couple of. I now had one. My one on the P-40 Pearl Harbor boys was taken down because I think I had used some copyrighted material, but I had one of my Tagan Tiger, my RC Tiger tank, taken down for violating, and I think that was one that got me the strike, because this RC tank turns toward the camera, and apparently when you hit the button, you can see a little red light flicker on the end of the EMG go, and then somebody considered that, it doesn't, pardon the pun, it doesn't take much to trigger these guys. So, okay. But anyway, that, give me some sure. Yeah. Yeah. Then the comment, did you read it right? Yeah. I mumbled it, the Necronomicon or whatever they call that thing. So, that's where we're at right now. I'm debating on whether or not to try to put a live stream together tomorrow, but I know Monday nights for a lot of people. I mean, we do Saturdays because that's usually when everybody has the time off. Yeah, Chris, we're allowed to hang out for the time being. Let's see. I go back to work in a few days. I'm going to take a box of models, some of them built and some of them unbuilt, to give my FO who's interested in getting in modeling. And tell you what, as long as we're here real quick. I've been curious about this. I think I'm going to open this up and we take a look at it. I actually was at Hurricane Hobbies just a couple of days before I got this, and I was like, yeah, I really need to add that. It's going to look good on the shelf, but it's like, nah, too many other projects. So let's see. Okay. Very tight box. Come on. Hey, gravity is letting me down. Alright. Let's try not to make parts fly all over the place. Wow, that's a snug fit. Somebody at the factory has to fit these things. Well, Mobius, I give you credit. The model fits as tight as the box does. This is going to be a great kit. Oh my! You ever have that happen? You actually have to tear the box to get in. There's a little tear right there. Oh. Oh, okay. Let's see what we have here. I'm watching the Battle of the Box. Okay, here are our clear parts, the windows and the engine. But I guess it was the engine. It looks like there's some kind of decals on there. Alright, here we have all of the major, outside wall components. Bag of detail parts. Oh, wow, okay. And 2 entire runner trees full of tiny little detail parts. So This is, I thought this was just going to be 4 sides, a top, and a landing gear. Take a look at the instruction sheet. Where's the instruction sheet? Literally, this is all there is. That's it. It's textual format. Cement the 2 fuse regulators together. Okay, it's how to detail all these little parts together. Okay, that's really all there is to it. I mean, there's a lot of steps, but not many photos. But that's interesting. It says 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 7 pictures and 8 steps, but they talk you through each one of them. Although it looks like fairly tab A into slot B, and you're going to pre-paint everything. And part 8 is the exterior details. Okay, that's going to be a little different. And it looks like most of these little parts on here are all these little bibs and bobs that are sticking out all over it. So it had to be inspired by the real life lunar module. Okay. A little more to this thing than I expected. So, cement, cabin air sampler, oxygen regulator, and oxygen tank. It gives you the part numbers, 59, 45, and there's a base photo. Okay. There appears to be no interior to this thing. Let's see. Nope. Everything's an outside part. Front hull assembly. Okay. Well, a little more to this than I expected. There are 2 entire complete runner trees. Now, some of these are landing gear legs and stuff, but there's definitely a gazillion little pieces in here. And I thought it was going to be something like this, just the big parts and a couple of landing gears. So, well, there we go. All right, well. That'll make a nice weekend build when I can get to it. As a matter of fact, maybe after the holidays. Well, I was going to say I could build this in here, but you know what? Everything's got to be pre-painted, so no, it'll have to go out to the Tarbus. Primary colors appear to be orange, gray, black, and aluminum. Those seem to be the main colors on it, so nothing too complex. Gray body, aluminum framing, aluminum reaction jets and stuff, black antennas, orange front for safety. Okay, well, let's see here. I don't even think instructions. Yeah. The irony about something that complicated that didn't get that much screen time is you could probably build half the stuff on there, stick it on wrong, and no one would even notice. Do not taunt. Happy fun ball. Number 6. Let's see. Hey, Nick. So I actually, just before I came here in there to test to see if this thing was going to work, I agreed to do something. My wife's making me dinner, so I don't think you guys want to sit here and see me chewing chicken. So when that gets done, we'll sign off. I'm just glad to be back on the tube. We do have, of course, if anything happens, we'll have the Rumble as a backup if it should ever come to pass. For those, I had some people ask about Rumble. It's a video on demand site where you can host stuff for free. You just all the thing is you just have to go get a Rumble account, which doesn't cost anything. You just go sign up and they send you an email and you log in just to make sure you're a real person and you're on Rumble. And it's kind of like a competitor to YouTube. And actually, in some ways, it's better because they don't. YouTube's probably better for monetization if you monetize because although they keep changing how they pay, but the Rumble doesn't keep a close eye. They don't have a lot of the rules that YouTube has, so people put a lot of stuff on Rumble you can't put on YouTube. The marketplace of ideas, something for everybody. an IKEA. uh, so yeah, I kind of quit putting stuff on Rumble because I always had it just as a like the little your reserve parachute or something, and I never came this close to using it on a regular basis. But anywho, so really not. I wasn't really prepared for this as just a test. I didn't expect 60 people to be signed on already. Let's see, what do we got here? Tell you what, let's just tentatively plan tomorrow at 7 o'clock to have a real live stream. And if you guys have anything you want to talk about, since I'm going to be working, we do have stuff going on here tomorrow, but I hope to get out to the Tarbis and do some more work on the Phantom. It's really starting to take shape. It's actually looking like an aeroplane now. And I say that, the airplane's starting to take shape, but I haven't started on the ejection seats. I haven't started on the pilot figures. And, there's like 7 parts to just to the pilots or the pilot and the Rio, because, you got the head, the body, the arms are all separate. The oxygen mask is separate. But then I have to do all the ordnance. So I have to do the 8 missiles. I got the drop tanks glued together, but I got to paint them. And the missiles can be deceptive because they figure out there's just a couple of parts, so no big deal. Yeah, they glue together easy. But since they all have to be white, you prime them and you wind up putting about 6 coats of white on there before they finally actually look right. And then you got a lot of decals, missile racks. So all the accoutrement that goes on the airplane can be actually as, if not more, time consuming than the airplane itself. The airplane has got so many little details already on it, all the antennas and all that stuff. And but fortunately, for the most part, you get the Tamiya fit. Couple issues: landing gear, you have to screw. The primary landing gears you guys saw is die cast, but it has plastic parts that go over it. But the die cast is what mounts. So they give you a little screw to go in there. Well, it wobbles. It's just an anchor screw. It didn't. So you'd use a ton of CA to get everything in there. But finally got it to bond, and it worked. And gosh, let's see, 8 missiles, 2 drop tanks. I have still have to do the tail, the vertical stabilizer. Yeah, there's all, it starts looking like an airplane. You start feeling like you're getting done. You realize you're only about halfway through there, because all the other stuff is very, very time consuming. And I'm going slow on that. This isn't a rush job. I'm really trying to do nice. The things you think that are going to be tough, like the red trim around the inside of the gear doors, the way it's cut, I used a red paint marker, and it just was great, except for 1 or 2 little bleed overs that I scratched off and repainted. That what I thought was going to be hard was easy. The ejection seats are primarily black with the. I give you an example. The B rings, the overhead face curtain rings for the ejection seats, are a separate part, which is nice. But there's 3 colors: red for the centerpiece, and then you got yellow with the black barber pole stripes all the way around it. And I haven't decided if I want to try and tape it off, hand paint it, or use a black decal stripe. I'm not sure if any of my decal stripe is thick enough, but little things like that are a trick. So that's the kind of stuff you spend all day just painting those 2 little things, just getting it all done. So anyway, well, guys, I can hear she who must be obeyed getting ready out there. So we'll sign off right now. And I tell you what, I'll let this run a little bit and you guys can chat on, but I'm going to kill my audio and video here. Okay, why am I still talking if I got the volume turned off? Let's see. Oh, I know what to put up. I'll put up a picture of the work I did today. And that's right here. And don't know which photo would be. I think that's the best photo. There we go. And that's how she sits at the moment. And I'll let you guys chat for a while. I'm going to turn off the audio here. And if you want, maybe I can play a little music if I got something going on here. So anyway, guys, we'll plan on something tomorrow night at 7 o'clock. We can all get together. And I want to thank everybody for putting up with the patience, and we'll do what we can do. See you later. As always, model on.
With his full score stacked up all around him, from a killing in the market on the wall. The children left King Midas there as they found him in his counting house where nothing counts but more. And he thought he heard the echoes of a penny whistle band and the laughter from a distant caravan, and the brightly painted line of circus wagons in the sand, fading through the door into summer. With his travel logs of maybe next year places, there's a trade-in for a name upon the door, and he pays for every year he cannot buy back with his tears when he finds out there's been no one keeping score. And he thought he heard the echoes of a penny whistle band and the laughter from a distant caravan, and the brightly painted line of circus wagons in the sand, fading through the door into summer. Yes, he thought he heard the echoes of a penny whistle band and the laughter from a distant caravan, and the brightly painted line of circus wagons in the sand, fading through the door into summer. 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 Fading through the door into summer.
One pill makes you larger and one pill makes you small, and the ones that mother gives you don't do anything at all. Though ask Alice when she was just small. And if you go chasing rabbits
should have known you'd bid me farewell. There's a lesson to be learned from this, and I learned it very well. Now I know you're not the only starfish in the sea. If I never hear your name again, it's all the same to me. And I think it's gonna be alright. Yeah, the worst is over now. The morning sun is shining like a red rubber ball. You never cared for secrets I'd confide. To you I'm just an ornament, something for your pride. Always running, never caring, that's the life you live. Stolen minutes of your time were all you had to give. And I think it's gonna be alright. Yeah, the worst is over now. The morning sun is shining like a red rubber ball. The stories in the past with nothing to recall. I've got my life to live and I don't need you at all. The roller coaster ride we took is nearly at an end. I've bought my ticket with my tears, that's all I'm gonna spend. And I think it's gonna be alright. Yeah, the worst is over now. The morning sun is shining like a red rubber ball. Oh, I think it's gonna be alright. Yeah, the worst is over now. The morning sun is shining like a red rubber ball. Oh, it's bouncing and it's shining like a red rubber ball.
Well, hey, baby, jump over here when you do the ooby-dooby. I wanna be near ooby-dooby. Ooby-dooby. Ooby-dooby, ooby-dooby. Ooby-dooby-doo. Wah-doo-wah-doo-wah. Well, you wiggle to the left, wiggle to the right. Do the ooby-dooby with all your might. Ooby-dooby. Ooby-dooby. A big rattlesnake. You do the ooby-dooby till you think I wanna break. Ooby-dooby. Ooby-dooby. Ooby-dooby, ooby-dooby. Dooby-dooby-doo. Wah-doo-wah-doo-wah.
After my eyes have seen the years and the slow parade of fears without crying, now I want to understand. I have done all that I could.
All right.
See the evil and the
had my chicken.
good without hiding.
Chicken.
You must help me
Wood.
if you can. Doctor, my eyes, tell me what is wrong. Was I unwise to leave them open for so long?
All right. So let's see what's going on here. I guess this is the Max's Models Late Late Show edition. Some comments I saw here I thought we would comment on this. Yeah, but I am so reformed. So let me I'll just stop that for right now. Let's see. There we go. So you're talking about CB radios and hams and stuff, and of course amateur radios took licenses and stuff, but the man, I'm running one heck of a lag here. So wait, what did I? Good Lord. Okay, let me do. I'm just gonna see how much of a lag I'm running here. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 isn't exciting. 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So I'm running about a 17 second. So what I see on my cell phone here is about 17 seconds old, but I think the comments come up more quickly than that. So hey, I'm on Proby. I'm a Proby baby. I'm out of juvie for the day. But now we have we were talking about the ham radio and stuff. And I remember a friend of my dad's had a big ham radio set up, and he had a camera. It was a video camera. It was looking at a plant, and he had a screen next to it, and it was building a picture of the plant in real time, but 1 pixel at a time. And that's how you could send a photo or a picture over a ham radio. But it took 45 minutes or more. Now, I was reading that ham radio operators can talk to the International Space Station when it flies over. Now, usually only for about a 15 or 20, 30-second window. But they were saying that, what they do is they normally broadcast their call sign, and the International Space Station hears them, because when the guys are up there and they're not sleeping and not working, they're bored. So sometimes they monitor the ham radio frequencies, and they'll go, this is the International Space Station. You actually talk to them for a few seconds. Well, one of the astronauts was able to use that ham radio technique to send a photo from the International Radio Space Station via ham radio, or via their radios, to ham operators who would download it, and it built it 1 pixel at a time. But of course, ham standing for amateur. They're part of the two. The 40. I remember when the CBs came out originally, there were 23 channel radios, and apparently there were problems and bleed over, so the 40 channels tightened things up, and then they banned the 23 ones because they were too loose and everything. There's only so much bandwidth out there. And they had to protect all the police and aviation frequencies. And of course, you got UHF and VHF and VLF. And I actually don't know what band CB radios operate on. I know they're line of sight. They're FM. But let me turn this down all the way. But it's like, it was cool that he was talking to, when we went to visit him, he was talking to someone in Brazil. And I'm like, now mind you, this is, 7 years old? This is 1968. But the idea that he keys the mic, and we had my little brother and sister with me, my little sister was a toddler. He keys the mic and speaks to this guy, and we hear this voice come back. I'm like, that's from Brazil. Ooh, of course, now you can just FaceTime somebody all over the globe, but we had this massive infrastructure to make that happen. Back then, that radio was bouncing off the atmosphere. You never knew who you were going to talk to because the atmospherics were a big deal. The ionosphere. If you guys have seen the movie, I think it's No Highway. No Highway in the Sky, not the High and the Mighty. The one where the Duke is the C-47 pilot, Captain Dooley, who has to make a forced landing in the Canadian way up in northern Canada where there's nothing. But when they're flying back, the navigator's trying to get a fix using the old ADS, automatic direction finders, and he's somewhere over the North Atlantic or over Nova Scotia or somewhere or north of that, and he's picking up radios from Pittsburgh, and he's trying to say, I think we can follow this beacon, Captain. I got a strong signal. He goes, can you trust it? Let me identify it. Hell, I got him to KLZ, Pittsburgh. And I'm like, oh crap, because it was bouncing off probably the ionosphere. And you start to understand, I don't know, when you're a kid, the stuff all just seems so cosmic, and when you're little, everything's a mystery. That's one of the reasons we love model building so much. You look at the box art and see all these fantastic scenes painted on there. In your mind, you're part of that. And it just stimulates your young imagination, at least if it's good box art, it does. And so no island in the sky. Thank you. There's no highway in the sky, and also known as no highway and no island in the sky. Thank you. Thank you, Garfield. So, and in the movie, one of my favorites, I know a lot of people think it's not that great, but for some reason, maybe because I saw it in a theater and it terrified the snot out of me, Day of the Triffids. And he's telling the little girl, because he's the first officer on a ship, he goes, we need to get to a radio on a ship. As a first officer, as a sailor, you have to know about these things. And I'm thinking, oh, it's cool, because my maternal grandfather had been a sailor in the First World War. I think he was on destroyers. And he was, I forget, it was a machinist mate or something, but back when the machinist mate was a guy that you hand him a piece of bar steel and a drawing, and he made whatever it was. And it was just one of those things that, to me, it was all such a mystery, how these people had all these skills. These guys understood electrics, electronics and radios and lathes and all this equipment that my dad would not let me touch, which is why I still have one on my fingers. But, these were manly men from a manly time who knew how to do things and make things. I think it's the movie Away All Boats. Was it Jeff Chandler, I think, is the captain, skipper of the boat, and he knows the guys are having, just bored and everything and kind of getting on each other's nerves. So he has them build this little sailing boat out of instructions in I think, Reader's Digest or something. And it's just a way for them to focus their energies and to keep them busy. And, the guys are hand grinding the cleats and fitting the wood. And you realize sailors have to be extremely self-sufficient. So they all have multiple skills and everything. And I was just kind of like, that's the kind of guy I want to be when I grow up. Man who can build something. They can make things. And yes, it is about surviving in the wilderness. And I actually have... Do I have it? Oh, yeah. Hold on. Hold that thought. You want to go in the Wayback Machine? You guys are going to like this. This is my dad's book. Modern Airmanship with the Air Force Star. Let's see. And that first published in May of 57, reprinted in 58. So this is probably the 1958 edition. And flight controls, the rules, but I think there's a thing in here. I think this is the book that has the chapter on survival in the wilderness and everything. It may have been another book, but no, I don't think. And by the way, this book, although it's 70 years old, let's see, 50, so you have 70 years old. This book, the stuff in here, most of it still holds true today. I mean, some things haven't changed, like how the inner ear works. But they had, I thought it was this book. I haven't opened this thing in decades. And they had a section on surviving in the Arctic and in the wilderness. And one of the things they showed you to do was, because back then they all carried survival rifles, was how to shoot an animal and how to, like, you use the hocks, you pull the fur off the hawk after you chop the leg off to eat it, and you make a booty out of it. Things like that. And it may be in this book, but okay. Now, I'm going to show you some stuff they don't teach anymore. Although technically speaking, I think it still applies on survival, because it's got a section on what to do if you go down. And it's got the section on helicopters. And the Air Force's new F-86D. Private aircraft. The owner's knowledge of general conditions of his aircraft can serve as criterion for determining the need for heavy inspection. The influencing factors are how long the aircraft is. Yeah, this is back before that. Oh, a Pan Am airliner in dock for inspection. Can anybody say Boeing 337? And let's see. It just flipped. Yep, here we are, the subarctic. There's the de Havilland beavers and otters. Now let's see. How to mount the skis on your airplane. Now mind you, when I first started reading this book as a kid, the book was only about 10 or 15 years old. Carburetor ice, landing on the... Tides in the polar basin are slight, amount to but a foot on most beaches of the Arctic Ocean. In the subarctic, however, they may be considerable. Cook Inlet, Alaska has one of the world's higher tide ranges. It talks about Kamchatka. I mean, there's just stuff in here that's... I should reread this thing. And some things, like I say, just don't change. But I saw... So, come on. Search and rescue and an emergency gear. Here we go. I should have a two-way radio with a range of over 500 miles. Ah! There it is. How to make the booties out of an animal's hock. I knew that was in here. Okay. Let's see the FARs cover that one on your next oral. The Moose Hawk Shoe. That's what it's called. Now you've learned something. How to make an igloo. And a lean-to, and how to smoke meats. This is what I was looking for also. I don't know if you guys remember a cartoon, an aviation cartoon that came on, I think, in the late 60s. I think it only lasted one season. I think it was called the Skyhawks. And it was about a general aviation operation that flew Cessnas and stuff. And the grandpappy that flew the Sopwith Camel still had his intact, perfect Sopwith Camel that would come into play from time to time. Well, anyway, they had an episode where a pilot went down, and they're out looking for him, and he puts these pine trees out and makes a symbol on the ground. You also see it in No Island in the Sky when they put the pine, they make the big symbol for people to see. Well, here is, I remember this in the book, this is the list of actual symbols you're supposed to make on the ground. Let me see if I can get some light on this. These are the symbols you're supposed to make on the ground if you go down to tell people what your status is. The upper left one, if you just have like an I, it means require doctor, serious injuries. Two I's means require medical supplies. An X means unable to proceed. An F means require food and water. Two chevrons down, like inverted corporal stripes, like British corporal stripes, require firearms and ammunition. And it's a way of communicating. A big C, require map and compass. A big K, indicate direction to proceed. An arrowhead, and like just an arrow, and proceeding in this direction. A triangle, probably safe to land here. And I seem to remember the guy put a triangle out because they could land and get him. The L, require fuel and oil. Double L, all is well, all is well. Yeah, I think he had a triangle with the two L's inside, if memory serves me right. And this isn't a cartoon. So that would mean safe to land here, all is well. N means no, Y means yes. An L, and like mirror image L's mean not understood, and W require engineer. Lay these symbols out using strips of fabric or parachutes, wood stones, or other available materials. Provide as much color contrast as possible. If possible, make symbols 8 or more feet high. Carefully lay out symbols exactly to avoid confusion. Also make every effort to attract attention by means of radio, flag, smoke, etc. God, I remember reading this. It's just, if you were just, it shows you how even today a lot of the instruments work. They're very precise, but they're also very simple. This is a vertical speed indicator, and this book, I used to go over this book all the time. And the thing is almost all the information in here is still as relevant it is today as it was in 1957 when this book was written. And Modern Airmanship by Van Sickle when he's the editor. And my brother has Aerosphere 1943, which is a 1943 vintage book made during World War II that's basically a bunch of advertisements for companies. And the one that's that sticks out of my mind is it shows like just a drawing like this blue. And they had a lot of things for blues in the print back then, and it shows this 50 caliber bullet, flying through the sky with the speed strakes behind it, and he goes, before this bullet could get to the enemy, it flew 10,000 miles on such and such fuel oils and spirits, and that was the first time I really stopped and thought about it. The massive industrial infrastructure in everything from food and medicine to feed the people and clothe the people that dig up the ore and then that drive the trucks and to get the oil out of the ground and refine it to make the trucks drive to the factory so that they can make the aluminum and the steel and the plastic and everything so they can make the planes and the guns and the bullets, and then the planes to train the pilots and to feed the people and take care of them and everything. And all this massive infrastructure that goes down like this tube so that at the end, this 20 millimeter round or 50 caliber round can strike an enemy airplane or hit an enemy target or take out an enemy soldier. And I will say it was the first time I really started to realize, my God, just what logistics are and how important they are. And anyway, because that's how my mind works. And I was like 8 years old. Don't use thermite. Yeah, you'll wake up the creature. Ever since I saw The Thing from Another World, or whatever it's called, James Arness, what we call The Thing, but it's actually, I think it was A Thing from Another World or A Thing from Another Planet. Ever since I saw that, I've been terrified of thermite. Not because I'm afraid of getting burned, because they use thermite, and I was like, oh my God, if we use thermite, it's going to wake up the alien or the monster. Are you concerned about? Actually, a little bit. You guys hear that they just shut down Newburgh Airport for an hour up in New York because somebody was up there flying drones around. I remember some years ago they shut Logan down for almost an hour because some idiot decided to fly a drone around there. He thought he was being cute. And actually drones are becoming more and more of a problem. In Tallahassee, of all places, God, this is back when I was still at Mesa, I think, so it's 25 years ago. And this is a little different. An RJ was coming in to land, and a radio-controlled, turbine-powered F-4 Phantom that somebody near the airport apparently had some land, and he was out flying his RC jet and went right over the wing of the RJ. And he wasn't trying to hit it. It was just, he was too close to the airport. And the Hawk movie? No, I'm not sure which one it was. Apparently, you think about it, when you use the word drone, by the way, if I'm not mistaken, the first military use of the word drone was actually used in the 50s in the Navy for an RC sub. I don't know if they actually used the word drone for the RC aircraft that they used during the war. I think they were simply called remotely piloted. I don't know if the word drone had been attached yet or not. But anyway, the word drone, basically just means remotely operated. And so, yeah, these little quadcopters and everything that people fly around with, and they fly off on them, or they get near airports. Yeah, it's been an issue a few times. And I had to do where I passed Mylar balloons more times than I can count. I even passed a weather balloon with the weather package hanging on it at like 17,000 feet. And I'm like, Really? They just let those things go into the wild? Okay. And I'm on the horn to ATC reporting what I saw so that nobody bumps into it. But, you know, there are big drones. I mean, we come up with names like UAV, and I'm not sure exactly because the word drone I think is a little bit nebulous. People call a thing a drone, which I guess is fair. But I mean, a predator is a drone technically. There's no one on board. It's being flown by a person, but he's in a remote location. And they come up with unmanned aerial system, unmanned aerial vehicle, and these different little names that that have a slight twist to sort of specify what it is. But in the end, I think they're all drones. And and make no mistake, I mean, we probably won't do it, but our kids or grandkids will probably get on airliners that are effectively drones. So the pilot will be on the ground if it's not completely automated. And the Haw was about the thing, 1951. Hawk was about the thing. Not ringing any bells. Aviation Trail, what does N stand for in one of a tachometer? Are you talking about on a turbine engine? Because N1 is the primary fan blade, and the N2 is the high pressure turbine. N1 is fan speed, but although it's measured in percent, like 50, 80% N1 or whatever, and N2 is the inner turbine. So and of course, every engine's different too. If you're talking about something like a helicopter, I mean, N1 is the front blade, and the N2 is one of the blades in there that's like a compressor blade. But when you're talking about the big jets, like fans, especially these new ones with the little tiny engines, like gargantuan fans, N1's the big fan out there loping along, and of course N2's a little one that in there, compressing air to just working its guts out. Just why they keep breaking. But the I don't know how they picked N. I guess that's just supposed to a value to represent, but like triangle delta is for change. But and of course you have EPers and all that other stuff. Now, jet engines, you can measure the power one of two ways. Has a look-up drone dream serial balloon 18. Okay, well, you got to give them credit for thinking outside the box. Yeah, I actually used to fly, or in fact, that footage of me wrecking my AME-262 is at Markham Park. Ken and I used to go out there all the time. I think I still have a pass for the place. Every time I fly over, if I have a new FO, we turn right around Markham Park, and if you can see it, hey, you see that little runway? He goes, yeah, that's Markham Park. That's RC's, man. Yeah, that's where I used to fly down there. But Markham Park, guys, if you happen to be in the Fort Lauderdale area, Markham Park is a county-run park west of Fort Lauderdale. It's it butts right up to the Everglades, so you're completely outside the city and everything. But as I was told, it was owned by a farmer named Markham, who he deeded the land over to the county with the understanding it had to be made a public park, and it had to have an RC field. They have one of the nicest RC fields. It's got bathrooms, vending machines, lots of workstations, and they also have a skeet range and a rifle range, and a pistol range, and they've got all kinds of stuff there. And they've got a place for for RVs. It's one of the nicest parks I've seen, and because it's run by the county and it has real employees working there, the place is clean and everything. And I always enjoyed going. There's only a few bucks to get in, and some days I think it might be on the weekends or the weekday. Some days it's free. But if you're at Markham Park, you look up right at the RC field. A lot of times that's right around, I think it's Nove intersection, where they turn us on to final, depending on the traffic flow. But generally speaking, you'll see airliners turning over there. Yeah, I knew the beginning of the end for RCs was coming into play when the whole drone thing, they said, okay, we're going to have to license drone operators. Like, crap, that's going That's going to hit the art. And sure enough, thing comes down from AMA, Academy of Model Aeronautics. You got to write your name on the airplane, and you got to have it, and then all this crap. Now they want transponders in them. And like, I knew, it's why we can't have nice things. Handful of idiots. Same thing with the lasers. The guys love to flash airplanes. I've been zapped with lasers at least a half dozen times. And, sometimes at night we got our side reflectors up for, sun reflectors up because it probably happens more in Puerto Rico than any place else. It happened in Dominican once, happened in New York a couple of times, and just some moron out there thinks they're being cute. But notational or nominal helicopter main rotor. Okay, well that makes sense. Well, Nathan, you bring up a point. People who fly drones, it is an RC and it isn't. But from the government's point of view, they kind of threw them all into one hat. And one of the things that makes some of the drones different is they can be programmed. You can program some of the higher end commercial drones with a complete flight. I know people that have done it, and then they show me the footage, and it will go fly a predetermined flight path and come back. Even if it's because it's got a GPS in it, even if it's out of signal of the controller. They have the OCR, so it'll take a photograph when it takes off of, like, if you launch it off a table, some guys will put a tape X on it, and they'll take it off the table, and it'll do this optical character recognition, like a picture of it when it takes off. So goes, flies whatever you programmed it to fly, comes back, it knows with the GPS where to come back to, and then it sees the X as long as you haven't moved the table, and this is something you can buy off the shelf for $600. Probably less than that now. So, it's just, and we all know that the government is always behind on the technology. You've got people with the profit motive who are like, hey, if we make this, we can sell it. We'll make a bunch of money. So they're working hard to make these things work. They get them to the market, and the government's like, and I'm not trying to knock government employees, but there's a lot going on in the world, so they can't see everything. And they're like, what the heck is this? And so then all of a sudden the stuff has to be, a couple of people cause problems. Everybody gets caught in the loop because the government only knows the one size fits all policy. I can understand and say you got to have this crap if you're within 5 miles of an airport. You can fly near an airport, but you live out in the middle of nowhere and will fly the thing around, but they want you to have all this stuff because they don't want to make exceptions because that's complicated. And when I knew the government was spending millions of dollars to make this big database of drone operators, I was like, yep, there goes the neighborhood. They're going to ruin it. And yeah, Trey, it's part of why I got out also. That, and I was returning entirely too many airplanes to kit for them. But the other catch in all this, though, was that, they sell these things at freaking Walmart. I mean, kids buying air hogs and letting them get away from them. That was my first RC helicopter, was an air hog, and I fly around inside the house. But then you still go to Walmart to see these things. And all the manufacturers do is just throw a card in there that says, hey, you have to register this with the government, which, 99% of people go, and if you remember The Iron Giant, I love that movie. It works on so many levels. One of the parts that I think was particularly insightful is where Kent Mantley is explaining to the town fathers. He goes, people want to rest assured that when something happens, our government has a response. Gentlemen, I am that response. And what you have is the government going, hey, we did something. Okay? And I think as much as anything else, that's all it's about, is they can say, hey, we did something. We came up with these rules. If they're breaking the rules, then we can take action against them. But we did something. It may not have worked. Maybe a waste of your tax dollars. But by golly, we did something. And to my knowledge, it hasn't had one iota's worth of impact on the the close calls or shutting down. Like I say, just yesterday, Newburgh shut down for an hour because of drones. So a lot of good it's done. If they're light enough, small enough, like the park flyers, and I think it's under half a pound or something, or 0.55 grams or something. I forget. There's a number. I got my master's degree in this stuff, and the rules have changed so much since then. My master's degree, my thesis, or what they call a capstone project, was my will people become more accepting of drones as counter drone technology becomes more readily available. And in a nutshell, yeah. As long as people know they can do something about a drone or they can detect it, and there's all kinds of commercially available either drone detection or actual counter drone stuff available. Now the jammers like the police use, those things are expensive. You can buy one, but they start at like 50 grand. You want to get the big system by Blighter that can take a drone out at 2 miles. That's about $1.6 million. But there's something you can buy for about $40. I forget the name of it, but basically you plug it into an outlet and it uses the electricity in your house. And you put a little thing on the roof and it works like a frequency detector, because all drone blades, all quadcopter blades run on roughly the same frequency because of the RPMs. And it can tell you if somebody's flying a drone within about 1 kilometer of your house. It doesn't necessarily tell you where it's coming from, and it doesn't do anything about it, but it does alert you that there's a drone flying around, so you know. And the police are using drones a lot more too, also. And of course, there's drone munition, the 12 gauge steel shot, guaranteed to bring down a drone on the first try. Oop, better not do that. Don't want to get recanceled. Evil can mean something more complicated. But I suspect that at some point, yeah. Actually, there have been several people who shot down drones with varying responses. The gentleman in Kentucky was hailed as a hero. The guy who did it in Florida got himself arrested. And of course, you guys may remember the famous incidents with the shark people that shark was an acronym, some kind of animal rights group that was flying over one of those places where they trap pigeons. They shot it down, and the judge's attitude was, "You flew it over where they shoot at pigeons and it got nailed. That's your problem." That's like complaining about the flak when you're flying a mission over Bremen. But okay, so now the feds are getting involved and saying it's like shooting at an airplane, which does not surprise me. Now that's a recent development, because the thing in Kentucky was 15 years ago. 10 years ago. The drones are still, and it didn't help that they were taking pictures of a bunch of underage girls in their swimsuits, at a pool party. So, and the guys were from out of state. So, that was a unique case, but it was also new and novel. Now it's not. I'm waiting for, I'm actually, and I'm surprised it hasn't happened in a way. I'm actually waiting for you to have to get a permit or a waiting period to buy a drone like you do to buy a shotgun or something. The drone situation, the technology, first off, you do know that some of these drone operators make their own drones. It actually isn't that hard. The chips and everything are out there, and the motors. I mean, I've seen the guys who race drones. They actually do it near the Orlando airport. Now they stay below tree level. They're doing first pilot view. They run between them. There's a course right there on what used to be the Air Force base in Orlando that I used to fly believe it or not, I used to fly RCs near the Orlando airport. And it wasn't a problem because it was a park and everybody knew we flew RCs there. Now, we were only a couple of miles from the airport. I mean, from the runways. But it was kind of and people have been doing it a long time, so it kind of quasi got grandfathered in. Then something weird happened, and I think you guys will appreciate this little story. One of my former first officers, who's a captain now, he had the big RC A10 and everything. He was flying that around, and his buddy had his Corsair, and they were tearing up skies with it. So, and RC was actually, that A10 was bigger than my ME260. I think it was huge. And I'm just flying my little Apprentice and the Luscombe that I built. Actually, was the Dare engineering kit. Anyway, point being that we had a jolly day of flying around, and you could hear wee 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 wee, and I'm like, wait, he goes, oh, they're racing drones over there, and these guys are going between trees with these things. They're zipping around like, I mean, they were fast, and of course they're FPV, so that, and I was like, man, this is like Star Wars, like these guys could be flying X-wings or TIE fighters. But I think that's all gone now. But they never said we couldn't fly there. But apparently about a week later, FO and his buddy were out there flying again. And all of a sudden his Corsair just loses all control and crashes. Later the same day, another RC does the same thing. And I suspect, and it's just a suspicion on my, there were power lines in the area, but I don't think that was it. I'm not sure that somebody wasn't out there with a jammer trying to discourage flying RCs around there. That's total guess on my part. I have nothing to back that up. It just, because it wasn't too long before no more activity was going on out there, and I never saw it getting banned. So I don't know. The club, the first club that I joined, which is at Flagler, was Rams, which is something area model society. Gosh, you'd think I'd remember the name of the club. But anyway, it's right by Flagler Airport. They have in fact, we have a 200-foot altitude limit because of it. And they have a phone there, a hard line. And you pick it up and you call the tower and tell them you're about to fly, because they have a control tower at Flagler Airport. And they're like, okay. Now, there's never been a problem. There's never been a conflict. The planes don't come that low over the field, but we're close enough. And we had to do that long before any of this stuff started. Yeah, the land had a club right by the airport. That's right. But the other thing is, you have the RC guys and the airplane guys. They all kind of know the rules and they behave. It's only going to take one or two dummies to do something not supposed to do. And personally, I think an RC club and airport, we used to fly RCs at my hometown airport in Quincy. It was wherever you went to fly them. No one cared. Of course, that was a quiet little airport that probably saw 20 landings a day. But anyway, it's one of those things that the technology is changing faster than the rules can keep up. And as it gets easier and more affordable, the pool of people doing it gets bigger, which increases the number of dummies that get into the game. And when that happens, and of course, there's the 1% in any group. And as the group gets bigger, that 1% gets bigger, and they keep doing more and more dumb stuff. And this is why we can't have nice things. But, oh yeah, we had several channels that were unused because of the digital. I remember the old ones where you had to have the clip on the antenna with a telescoping antenna. You had the clip on it with your frequency, and no two guys could be on the same frequency. And now, of course, everything's digital, so it's bound to the particular airplane. The digital radios really changed the game, which is weird to see guys with boxes that just have a bump on top instead of a long antenna. But not just a Hurricane Hobbies. Like, several people came in that were interested in getting into RCs, and nice thing is Ian's got a lot of good entry level stuff. He doesn't actually carry very many actual RC kits. They're pretty much all ARFs and almost ready to flies and bind and flies and stuff like that, which is great for getting people into it. But the purists, who build their own airplanes from scratch and everything, they're kind of slowly becoming a dying breed. But I can understand that overpopulation spoils everything. ZPG, zero population growth. But old 72 megahertz. Beep, 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 beep. I remember flying on a coffee grinder ADF, which they call it that because it has a candle like on a coffee grinder, and you rotate it in the day, and you had the crystals. For the days of primitive navigation, when one peak was worth 1,000 cross checks. And but I've seen these guys that made these beautiful RCs, and they would always bring them and show you how the progress. One guy was making this Coast Guard helicopter. He didn't have the glass in it yet or the rotors on it, but he had the fuselage mostly done. I was like, what a work of art that was. And the problem is that, okay, so how are you going to learn to fly it? Because you don't want to learn on this beautiful thing. Now, you could, I'm sure he already had the helicopter, like a trainer kit to learn on, but to watch something you've put 1,500 hours or whatever into building, return to kit form, that's a gut wrenching experience. It's bad enough when you just lose money and watch something you just bought crash, but when it's one that you slaved over. I remember a few years ago, well, I guess about 10 years ago now, there was this, back when we all used to go to websites and bulletin boards, there was a website I was visiting that this guy, it was actually a forum, and he was working on this SPD Dauntless made from plants, and the thing was 100% authentic, which is dimensions and everything, which is probably part of the problem. And he was putting the grab handles on it and everything, and it just, the level of detail was on par with a kit model, plastic model. And he has this beautiful airplane when he's done it, and he totaled it on the maiden. And it took off, it was unstable, something happened. And I was like, oh, God. It just... I bet he didn't sleep for 2 nights after that. Year to build, a minute to return to kit form. Absolutely. And... oh, yes. No, Nathan, you're absolutely right. Ken told me when he first got me into it that there's a golden rule amongst RC guys. Don't fly it if you're afraid of losing it, because sooner or later it's going to happen. That big SBD that I have hanging up in the Tarbis on the wall, that was the Guilos kit that Ken bought for me I think it was for my birthday. And what he was hoping it would get me into RCs. But I've converted 3 Guilos kits into RCs, and they're not really made for that. They're too heavy. The Stearman, the Zero, and the Stuka. And you can do it. Don't get me wrong. And all 3 of them flew. I just cratered every one. Well, the first one, we had a guy who knew what he was doing flying it, and we put way too much engine on it. And we literally pulled the wing off in flight. It just couldn't take that big. It was too much stress. And the Stearman, I had the battery set up as the weight to balance it, and I put it in the wrong place, so it was real touchy. I actually kind of got it back, but I flew it a second time and it cratered. But the Stuka, first off, it was a little blustery to go up and do it, but the Stuka, I probably also over-engined it, and I wound up getting on its back, and instead of using the ailerons, I tried to split asset, and I didn't have the room, and it power dived into the ground. But they did all fly, so there's that. And the first thing I should have done, that Stuka got airborne, I should have throttled it back because it was going too fast. I've seen a couple of guys, the Stearman seems to be a popular Guilos kit to turn into an RC if you're going to do it. And they literally go in and cut out the lightning holes, to lighten the wood. They cut out the lightning holes in all the formers and everything to reduce as much weight as they can. They file everything down. They cover it as lightly as possible because the airplanes are built to scale. Guilos kits are built to scale. And when you fly these things, they're kind of heavy for the amount of lift and everything they produce. The Stearman being a biplane has a lot of lift, though. And one guy I saw flying, they have to move kind of quick to stay in the air. And they're not real big. There is a guy out there who takes these little micro servos, and he gets the little Guilos kits, like the Bird Dog, and he converts them into, he turns the little ones into RCs, a little tiny engine, and they fly. They look like they're going fast because they're so small, and he gets them back down. The guy, what can I say? He's got mad skills. And so it can be done. That's right. The Guilos kits use really poor quality heavy balsa because they're not really made to fly. They're made to, I did the Sterling AT6 with the gear that pops down as a rubber band unwinds, and I got it to work one time, and I was like, hey, what do you... But it didn't fly worth crap because like a Guilos kit was just way too heavy. But I'd built it as a kid and couldn't get it to work because... So when I did it 10 years ago with all the tools and everything I have now, and got everything just lined up and perfect. And I was like, there's no way a kid's going to do this. Well, of course not. The whole thing with the spring-loaded landing gear, that was just a marketing ploy to get kids to buy the kit. And it worked, because I bought the kit. Twice. But that's, it was still a lot of fun, though. And that's the thing. You think about a lot of the gimmicks we bought off on as kids that were never going to work. Okay, raise your hand if you bought the, what was it, the seahorses, you drop in water in, I think they're shrimp larvae or something. But my brother got curious one time. He goes, 100 soldiers for $1, and that advertisement was always in the back of comic books. So one day he just, screw it, I'm just curious, and he spent the $1, $4, whatever. Sure enough, there's a little Foot Locker, a little box about this big, painted up like a foot, and he opens it up and dumps it out, and there's all these stupid looking airplanes and soldiers and everything. And I was like, it was like $3, but I was like, hey, advertisement was legit. Yeah, of course. And but the cardboard submarine was the one I always wanted to get. Of course, in my mind, I'm thinking they're going to send me the USS Nautilus. And I actually saw a picture of a kid who actually bought one and got it all taped together. And of course, it couldn't go in the water. It was made of cardboard. And it kind of reminded me of a stealth bomber, the F-117, the way it looked. But I was like, well, what do you know? At least you get something for your $6. And but I do know you can go and see guys that have converted Guilos into rubber band or electrics that do fly. It can be done, but it's not something a 9-year-old's going to do. And Sea Monkey's brine shrimp, that was it. Yeah, that was it. I think my sister got that one. Remember, but the X-ray glasses. Oh, we all have to remember the Charles Atlas thing that made up the whole back page of the comic. The whole 6 or 8 panel where the nerd gets sand kicked at his face for his girlfriend, so he gets the Charles Atlas thing and pumps himself up and dukes out the bully at the end. And I was kind of like, when you're 7 years old, hey, it was more coherent than a lot of the stuff I see on television these days. Yeah, it was good times. The Navy ships in 2 colors, and you could buy the Rebel and Confederate and Union soldiers and all that other stuff. And the ads in those comic books and the seeds, here, sell these seeds, kids, and get points. And someone, little Mary in Wisconsin, sold $500 worth, and now she owns a mansion. Of course, well, they still do. But I built a card Polaris missile that was paper towel tube. But when I was again, we always go, you would look at this stuff and they would say, send it to this place in such and such Illinois. These places are always either up in Long Island or up in Illinois. And I would, the fact that you were sending mail away to some distant place and then this mysterious thing would show up in your mailbox 2 weeks later. This is back when I was always a bit of a photo bug, and you had to pay to develop film. You get your 12 or 24 shot Instamatics for your little 110 or 124 camera and click, click, click. You had no idea what these pictures are going to look like until they got developed. So you go to local Rexall Drugs, which was one of the 3 places in town that sold models. And I'd give that to them, and then 2 weeks later it would come back, or a week later it would come back, and you pay them, and then you get to see your photos. I thought it was such a big deal when that started to get more competitive, because like photomats were opening up, and you would they'd start giving you 2 prints instead of 1, which I thought, for no extra money, such a steal. And heck, wherever my photo albums are, I still have some of those old photos of my old models, which I've used in videos, but. My dad's business in P.O. Box, Niagara Falls, New York, where they got mailed to, since the offer was good only in the USA. No foreign order. I remember no foreign orders accepted. And they would talk about no CODs. And I'm like, what has codfish got to do with this? Did I mention I was like 8 years old? Nathan, I think I think a lot of that is probably why some of these laws came into pass. But back then there wasn't much enforcement on that. And who's gonna do a federal lawsuit over 35 cents or $1.50? But baking set. I remember. Oh, working on this Ideal Toys video. I didn't realize, Ideal was dipping their beak into every kind of toy that was out there. And I didn't realize, I think every one of us had toys by Ideal, especially if you had a Rubik's Cube, because that was one of their big things. And some of the dolls they made, they're creepy to look at, but they sold millions of them. A friend who worked at the Post series job was to go to toy shows around the world for the toys. Oh, okay, well that makes sense. Somebody sent me recently that one where, they had like a B-58 Hustler model in the, I was like, okay, I don't remember that being in my cereal, but I'd have made my mom buy a box of cereal for that. I'll eat the whole box, Mom. I'll do it right here in front of you. Of course, I don't know how old I was when I really, used to think you had to eat all the cereal and get to the bottom to get your toy. And then, I don't know, 7 or 8, 9 years old, you realize, hey, wait a minute, I can just pour one bowl and just do this with the box and reach down in there and get it. Or just decant it all into cereal bowls, get my toy, and then pour it back in the box. I was a scoundrel. Yeah, that's true. And local Woolco. There you go. Woolco, they had one in Tallahassee when I was a kid, and it had one of the best kit model selections for a long time. And my mom, we'd always go to Tallahassee on Sunday, after church and everything, still on our Sunday go to Meat and Best. And sometimes we'd have a nice lunch, and Mom would do shopping at Woolco, and she knew she could just deposit us at the dual racks of models they had, and which were actually fairly well organized. The balsa kits on bottom, and then the small scale on top and big scale in the middle. Then there was Carter Sporting Goods, had a good model selection. I spent all my birthday money there one year. And got the Sterling triplane and balsa. I don't remember what else about that. I remember that Sterling biplane. It was the first one I did where the skin actually looked good on it. And Major Matt Mason was by... Oh, that was by Ideal? Oh, man, I was a big Major Matt Mason fan as a kid. I was like 6, 7 years old. That's all I wanted for my birthday. And I have the good Major sitting up right there. I think he's right on. You can't really see him. But anyway, my brother got me that for my birthday about 15 years ago, and it was a pretty penny then. The originals, especially with the wires in them, are still good or stupid expensive. It was like $25 just to get an extra helmet. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. But Woolco is one of our go-to places, and I knew the world was coming to an end when I went to Woolco, and there weren't as many models, and I'd go there every time there'd be a few less, and they weren't restocking the shelves. And this would have been 71, 72, and that was maybe 73, and that was just as, the model building decline was beginning. And when you're running a department store, it's all about the sales. If they're not meeting certain numbers, then out it goes. S&H, oh my God, S&H Foods. My mom did those things religiously. She had books of them. And we'd go over to the A&P, Ann and Page grocery store, where they had the 8 o'clock coffee grinder right there at the end of the counter. And when my mom would get a pound of coffee, they grinded it fresh. I'd sit there just, I'm like 4 years old. I'm like, oh, that smells so good. Of course, at that same age, I also loved the smell when someone would light up a cigarette. Like, oh, that smells so nice. Did we not grow up in the greatest of times? Yeah. And, God, S&H green stamps. Some of these grocery stores I'm not familiar with because I know a lot of them are regional. And, but my hometown now has a Piggly Wiggly, but they didn't when I was growing up. That came years after I left. And we had the IGA, which of course is Independent Grocers Association. So IGA, you never knew what you're going to get, but we also had a Winn-Dixie. And we couldn't dream of having a Publix. I lived the pig. And apparently everybody's really happy that the Piggly Wiggly's in Quincy, Florida now, because they're just like, oh, the Piggly Wiggly. And it's just fun to say, Piggly Wiggly. It's like bouffant. Just a fun word to say, a beautiful bouffant. Well, guys, I'm glad to be out of Atlantic and Pacific. A&P stands for Ann and Page. And they had, if I remember correctly from my criminology class back in the early 70s, late 60s, early 70s, A&P had 3 store managers, including one of which was a woman and a mother, brutally murdered by the mob because they wouldn't carry some kind of dish soap that the mob owned the factory to. And so the old days weren't always that great. Western Auto, the guy who bought our store after my dad passed, Gerald Tolar, had spent like 20 years running the Western Auto. And it's funny, for those who are not familiar with Western Auto, it's a little hard to describe because it wasn't just an auto parts store, which the name would imply. They had bicycles and just all kinds of stuff. It was almost like a weird cross between an auto parts store and a Sears and a hardware store. It was different. And select their own items to pay at their, Oh, is that real? Okay. Yeah. I always thought it was so cool that I knew people, and I imagine we all did, that talked. We think of yesteryear, the days of horses and buggies as being so far away. The lady who picked me up at school when I was in like the third, I guess the 4th, 5th grade. So we're talking, 71? She talked about when she was a little girl, in the same town I lived in, the milk was delivered by a horse-drawn cart. It wasn't that long ago. All of us knew World War II veterans. Some of us knew some World War I veterans. And, today it seems like ancient history, but it wasn't that long ago. What worries me is that as time passes by and we kind of lose we get further away from events even we can remember. And there was a poem or a song or something that was written that said, I lament the day when the names Guadalcanal and Iwo Jima shall be as distant as Shiloh and Ticonderoga. We're getting to that point where, as the greatest generation is drifting into extinction, that now we still make movies about it, like Masters of the Air and Saving Private Ryan, stuff that sort of keeps it in the collective memory. But there's going to be a time when, you talk about the Chosin Reservoir or the Tet Offensive, and people look at you, might as well be talking about, the Battle of Gettysburg. And it's hard to believe, but that's one of the things I love about our hobby, is that for the most part, it tends to keep us connected with these things. And when I meet these young kids, and I mean some of them 9 years old, at the hobby shop that are looking at models, which is unfortunately a rare thing these days, but it does happen. And it's always heartwarming. He goes, well, this class of ship, but it was designed, And I was like, hey, somebody's carrying the torch. Kid, I'll buy you that model if you read the history on it and build the kit. So there's something to be said for that. Yes, World War II veterans cross paths with Civil War veterans who cross paths with Revolutionary War veterans. It just isn't that long ago. Our relative countries aren't that old. And Canada and the United States and Mexico, Germany is actually younger than the United States. I mean, Germany is we've been watching that series, The Empress, which is pretty good, about the Emperor of Austro-Hungarian Empire, who was it Franz Joseph? I forget. Anyway, but when he's a young man with his young bride and trying to have kids and all the political intrigues that go with it, and Maximilian, who later was killed down in Mexico, is his younger brother. But I love period pieces like that, especially when they try to keep the history reasonably straight. And I love telling my wife, oh, this led to that and that. But here you have this is before Italy was a country, and the northern part of Milan and that part of Italy was actually part of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, which I didn't even realize till I saw this. Let me look that up. Of course, now you're on Wiki looking, oh, what do you know? Son of a gun. It was part of the Austro. And you realize Italy as a country isn't that old. A lot of European countries are almost as young as the United States, at least as the borders sit today. And, the Italian speakers want to break away, and he's talking about, well, we have to be careful of the Prussians to the north. I'm like, wait a minute. The Prussians are a threat to Austria? But apparently those are the intrigues of the day. And good God, I thought American history was complicated. European history will make you dizzy. I mean, the borders are just like musical chairs. But maybe I'm sure how to dial a phone. How to dial the phone. Oh, that's like the millennial anti-theft device for a car. As a clutch. Stick shift. But anyway, the one of the channels I love is Nick Hodges. He's an English kid who does history buffs, and he does these very in-depth 2 hour long videos on movies, what they got right, historical films, what they got right, what they got wrong. The one I disagreed with him on was the recent production of Midway, which wasn't a bad movie. It just had some things I couldn't get past that didn't need to be in there, and they left out some great stuff too. But this is when knowing too much about history ruins movies for you. I'm like, the Devastators are going out on the attack carrying a torpedo and a pair of 500-pounders. One of the other guys, that airplane would have gone right in the water with both of them. And then he launches the torpedo and flies away with his 500-pounder still on the wings. I'm like, do you not understand how a bomber works? But I think the one that just absolutely drove me bonkers was Dick Best running out of gas basically and diving down behind the carrier and then pulling his SBD up and flopping it on the deck. I'm like, do you not know how physics works? They were that close to having a really good movie. But anyway, okay, let it go, Max. Just let it go. It's like having the submarine win against Godzilla. It just doesn't happen in the real world. So anyway. Oh, guys. Yeah, it's going on. It's after 11 o'clock here. I had better pack it in. I haven't had my shower today, and you better be glad this computer does not have smell-o-vision. So, guys, I want to thank everyone coming out. We'll plan tomorrow night a proper live stream. I'll try to put something together, but if not, we'll just turn it into a gab session. But 7 o'clock tomorrow night. Take care of yourselves. We'll talk to you later, guys, and as always, model on.
fading through the door into summer, fading through the door into summer, fading through the door into summer, fading through the door into summer.
One pill makes you larger